My mother has been a public school teacher in Ohio for 26 years. 26 years of parent-teacher conferences, 26 years of grading essays at the kitchen table, 26 years of buying her own classroom supplies out of a paycheck that never stretched far enough. She thought she had seen everything. Then she flew up to visit me in Canada for 2 weeks, and I made the mistake, or maybe the best decision of her life, I still cannot tell, of taking her inside 6 Canadian schools. By the 4th school, her hands were shaking. By the 5th, she was quiet in a way I had not heard since my grandfather's funeral. And by the 6th discovery, she sat down on a bench in the school hallway, looked at me, and said 7 words I will never forget for the rest of my life. But before I tell you what she said, you need to see what she saw. Because what my American mom discovered walking through those Canadian schools is not a small difference. It is not a cute little cultural quirk you laugh about over coffee. It is a geographic choke point, a single invisible line, 4,000 kilometers long, that decides whether a child grows up feeling safe or grows up learning how to hide under a desk. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Stay with me until the end, because the 6th thing is the one that made a woman who has taught through 3 recessions, 2 pandemics, and 1 school lockdown cry in a parking lot in Toronto. I am going to walk you through all 6 discoveries in the exact order she made them. I filmed most of it, I have the receipts, and I promise you, number 6 is not what you think it is. The first school we visited was an elementary school in a middle-class neighborhood outside Toronto. My mom walked up to the front entrance and stopped. She just stopped, and she said, "Honey, where is the security vestibule?" In her school, in Ohio, to enter the building you pass through a bulletproof glass foyer, you press a button, a camera scans you, a buzzer releases a magnetic lock, and then a second door opens into a small holding room where you sign in before a third door lets you into the actual school. 3 doors, bulletproof glass. A panic button under the secretary's desk. At this Canadian school, we opened one unlocked wooden door and walked directly into a hallway full of children's artwork. There was a woman at a desk who smiled and said, "Are you here for a tour?" That was it. That was the security. My mom looked at me and said, "This cannot be legal." And I told her, "This is normal here. This is every school." She did not believe me until the 3rd one. According to Statistics Canada and Public School Board policy documents, the average Canadian public school does not have armed security, does not have metal detectors, and does not conduct active shooter drills as a monthly routine. Meanwhile, a 2024 report from Everytown for Gun Safety documented that the majority of American public schools now run active shooter drills at least once per year, and a significant percentage run them monthly. She had not even taken off her coat yet. This was discovery number 1. We walked into the cafeteria at the second school, a middle school in a working-class neighborhood, right at the start of the lunch period. My mom scanned the room like a hawk. She has done cafeteria duty for 2 decades. She knows what to look for. She is looking for the kids sitting alone. She is looking for the kids who pretend they are not hungry. She turned to the vice principal and asked, very quietly, "How do you handle lunch debt for the kids whose parents cannot pay?" The vice principal tilted her head. She actually looked confused. She said, "I am sorry, what is lunch debt?" My mom explained. She explained that in her district, kids whose parents owe money for school lunches sometimes get a cheese sandwich instead of the hot meal. She explained that some districts stamp the child's hand or arm. She explained that in some places a kid's tray gets taken away in front of everyone and thrown in the trash if the account is negative. She has personally paid off lunch debt for her own students out of pocket. Hundreds of dollars a year, every year, for 26 years. The vice principal's face went white. She said, "Ma'am, in Ontario, if a child is hungry, we feed the child. There is no debt, there is no account. There is a program called Student Nutrition Ontario, and if there is no program, the school pays. Full stop." My mom sat down. She literally had to sit down at a lunch table with a bunch of 11-year-olds eating pasta. One of the kids offered her a breadstick. She took it. She did not say a word for the rest of that lunch period. That was discovery number 2. 3rd school, 3rd city. My mom asked to see the nurse's office. She is friends with her school nurse. Her school nurse is also the nurse for 3 other schools because the district cannot afford 1 per building. Her school nurse hands out ice packs and calls parents and prays nobody has an asthma attack. The Canadian nurse's office was a full clinic. It had a nurse practitioner on site 4 days a week. It had a mental health counselor with a private room. It had a rack of clean spare clothes for kids who came from unstable homes. It had free menstrual products in an open basket by the door, not locked in a cabinet, not requiring a signed note, just sitting there like tissues. My mom picked up a tampon from the basket and just held it. She said, "In my school, girls miss 2 to 3 days a month because they cannot afford these. We have a locked cabinet. They have to ask." She put it back down like it was made of glass. Then she saw the sign on the counselor's door. It said, "You can come in for any reason. You do not need a pass. You do not need permission. If you are here, you belong here." She read that sign 3 times. Discovery number 3. Fourth school was a high school. The principal, a very kind man named Mr. Nguyen, invited us into his office and offered my mom a sample report card. She has been grading report cards for 26 years. She knew what she was looking at within about 10 seconds. She said, "There is no class rank on here." He said, "No, we do not rank students against each other." She said, "There is no grade point average calculated for college." He said, "Universities here look at your actual grades in your final year. There is no cumulative competition for 4 years." She said, "There is no advanced placement track." He said, "We have enrichment, but we do not sort children into gifted and non-gifted at age 11. And then she said the thing I will never forget. She said, "So the kids are not competing against each other for their whole childhood?" And he looked at her and he said very gently, "No ma'am, they are just growing up." Boo-hoo! She started crying in his office. She thought about her own son, my little brother, who has anxiety attacks the night before every report card comes out because he is ranked number 47 in his class, and he thinks it means he is worth less than the 46 kids ahead of him. She thought about the students she has watched fall apart at 16 because their grade point average dropped from a 3.9 to a 3.7, and they believed their life was over. Discovery number 4 broke something in her. Fifth school. This one was smaller, in a more rural area outside Ottawa. A teacher was handing out permission slips for a field trip to a science museum. My mom picked one up out of curiosity. She read it. She flipped it over. She read it again. Then she looked up at me and said, "Where is the cost?" I said, "There is no cost. Field trips are free." She said, "That is not possible. Buses cost money. Museum entry costs money." The teacher, overhearing, walked over and said, "Field trips in Ontario public schools are funded by the board. If a family cannot pay for a field trip, the family does not pay. If nobody can pay, the trip is still funded. No child is left behind in the classroom while their friends go to the museum." My mom told her about a 5th grader she taught last year, a girl named, I will not use her real name, but a girl who sat alone in the library for 3 days while her entire class went to Washington, D.C., because her mother could not afford the $680 trip fee. My mom said that girl has not been the same since. The Canadian teacher's eyes filled with tears. She said, "That would never happen here. That is not a school. That is a punishment." Discovery number 5. And now, the 6th discovery. The one that terrified her. The one I promised you. It was not dramatic. There was no announcement. There was no gasp. It was a bulletin board in a hallway at the last school we visited. An elementary school full of 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. The bulletin board had drawings on it. Crayon drawings. Little kid drawings. Each drawing had a title written by the teacher underneath, based on what the child said the picture was about. Things like, "My dog Buster," "My family at the lake," "The rocket ship I want to build." My mom walked down the hallway looking at these drawings. She was smiling. It was the first time she had smiled all afternoon, and then she stopped. She stopped in front of a bulletin board in her own school in her own head. She was picturing it. She had been standing in front of a bulletin board in her school in Ohio just 2 weeks before, and it had drawings on it too. But the drawings in her school were different, because in her school, every October, the kindergartners are asked to draw a picture of where you would hide if a bad man came into our school. And the pictures are pinned to the wall, little crayon drawings of 5-year-olds curled up in cabinets, under desks, behind bookshelves. Some of them draw the bad man, some of them draw themselves crying. She had seen that bulletin board 100 times. It never once occurred to her that it was strange, until she stood in a Canadian hallway looking at a drawing of a golden retriever named Buster. She sat down on the bench in that hallway. She put her hands over her face, and she said the 7 words, "We are doing this to our children. Not them, not American schools. us, we. She said it as a teacher, she said it as a mother, she said it as a citizen. We are doing this to our children. That is the sixth discovery. It is not that Canada is a paradise. It is that the thing my mother had accepted as normal for 26 years, teaching children to hide from bullets before they can tie their shoes, is a choice. It is a choice her country makes. And a country 4 hours north by plane, sharing the same continent, the same language, the same climate, has quietly, unremarkably, decided not to make that choice. Here is what nobody wants to say out loud. The border between the United States and Canada is the longest undefended border in the world, almost 9,000 kilometers. It is not a wall. It is not a mountain range. It is a line on a map. Same latitude, same weather, same maple trees, same hockey, same complaints about the price of gas. And yet on one side of that line, a woman who has taught for 26 years finds bulletproof foyers, cheese sandwiches for hungry kids, locked cabinets for tampons, class rankings for 10-year-olds, $600 field trips, and crayon drawings of hiding places. On the other side of that line, a 4-hour flight away, a Canadian teacher does not know what the phrase lunch debt means. This is not about which country is better. My mom is not moving. She loves her students. She is going back to her classroom in Ohio next Monday, and she is going to keep buying pencils out of her own paycheck, and she is going to keep running active shooter drills, and she is going to keep paying off lunch debts, because she believes those kids deserve a teacher who will not give up on them. But she is going back changed. She is going back knowing that the way things are is not the way things have to be. And that is the most dangerous knowledge a person can carry, because you cannot unlearn it. If you are American, I am not asking you to move to Canada. I am asking you to sit with the discomfort of knowing that a 5-year-old in Toronto drew a picture of a golden retriever named Buster on the same afternoon a 5-year-old in Ohio drew a picture of himself hiding under a desk. If you are Canadian, I am asking you to stop apologizing for what you have. Fight to keep it. It is more fragile than you think. And if you are anywhere else in the world watching this, understand something. A border is not a wall. A border is a decision. Every school my mother walked into on that trip was a decision. Every locked cabinet, every free tampon, every hungry kid, every fed kid, every drawing on every bulletin board, a decision made by adults in rooms about what kind of childhood a child gets to have. My mom flies home tomorrow. She asked me last night, sitting at my kitchen table, if she could take one of those permission slips with her, the free field trip one. She said she wanted to put it on her fridge, not as a souvenir, as a reminder. She said, so I never forget that I saw it. So I never forget that it exists somewhere. So I keep fighting until it exists at home too. If this video moved you, if any part of this made you think about the school down the street from you a little differently, do me one favor. Do not just like this video. Send it to a teacher. Send it to somebody who still believes the way things are is the only way things can be. Because the sixth discovery was not really about Canada. The sixth discovery was about the moment a woman who thought she had seen everything realized she had been living inside a choice her whole life, and she had never once been told she was allowed to choose differently. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. My mom would want you to know that means more than you think. I will see you in the next one.